Hey everyone, the numbers are in for the Gulf Front market in Panama City Beach. This is the Gulf Front market update with no condos, so just attached units, detached units. I'm Craig Duran with the Duran Group at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I get asked all the time, hey, is now a good time to sell? What's going on with pricing? Those are the questions we get, in any market. So I want to try to answer that as quickly and easily as possible. Show you what I see. The first part's really easy. In the second quarter of 2025, if I look for anything that's sold on the Gulf that is not a condo, we have 3 sales. And I have these organized by price. They were all sold in April. There was a sale in Carillon Beach for $5 million. Carillon Beach is sort of its own insulated little thing, acting a little more like 30A than probably PCB right now still. We did have a sale April 11th on Gulf Drive. This was 3,300 square feet that sold for 2,475. And we did have one of the attached units over on Surf Drive. I've got one of these listed next door. I've got a couple things on Surf right now. 3,000 square feet attached with a garage, 1.55 million. Those are the only sales for Gulf Front units in Panama City Beach in the second quarter. So a couple of simple takeaways there. First of all, obviously not a lot of activity. Only one detached unit, and it was inside of Carillon Beach. You can decide what you think on pricing. I can give you more detail on these if you wanted to see more about the specs. Just send me a note. The other thing I would point out here too, coming into beach season, a lot of times January, February, March, it's almost like we get momentum with buyers leading into beach season, and that sort of crests March, April. Because if you write a contract March, April, you're closing April, May, and you can use the thing right away. You can rent it right away, and so if you look at this, makes sense. We had a couple of buyers that closed in April. So you figure these contracts were probably written. This is probably written early March. This is probably written early mid-March. This is probably written mid-late March. So it's essentially a comment on the market from March. It's also another way to look at it is April and May didn't bring any activity. Something else we can look at, we're always watching this months of inventory number. Anytime there are holes in this chart, there aren't sales. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of the last 8 months there aren't a sale. You can see big picture we're trending up slightly. We're up from 2.63 to 12, but we've hit numbers as high as 33, 36. Just extreme buyer's market. And it's a little odd to take that. That's a mix of products there: detached, single family, attached, single family. So that data's a little different. Another way to look at this is if we took like detached single family units over 1 million. That's lower than the bottom end of Gulf Front, but that brings us into a higher price point for PCB. And here it's even more clear. If you have a house in Panama City Beach priced over $1 million, in June of this year we were at 22 months of inventory. Last year we were at 4. Let's deal with that for a second because that's huge. I hadn't looked at that. We're 5 times slower in the market in June this year than we were last year. 5 times slower on homes priced over $1 million. Now, price trends will probably be a little all over the place, because that would be homes in the preserve, that'd be homes in Bay Point, that'd be homes on the Gulf, close to the Gulf. So you would want to dial it in a little more than that to get specific price trends, but that's an extremely high number. Almost 2 years of inventory means it's going to take us that long at the current rate of sales to sell out everything. That's why you see so much pressure on pricing. I don't have the number what I'd like to have. I'll have it on the next video. The amount of price adjustments down on all of the asking prices for the things that are for sale. Would be good for someone to know. If we take this same information and look at what's for sale, there are 37 units for sale attached or detached on the Gulf, starting anywhere from $850, for a smaller 2-bedroom, $850 up to about $999. And then it's just all over the board. You get a detached unit starting at $1,785. I have this one listed for sale. I have this one on Front Beach Road for sale. We've gotten some good action on this. We're close to a deal on one in Margaritaville right now. I'm working on this one also, and we're working on this one that's been under contract on Surf Drive. A buyer still trying to get back under contract there. So just on what I'm working on there, there's some activity at 3.9. There's some more activity on this 3.9. There's a little bit of activity. I've got a buyer for this at 2,495 and offers on this at asking 195. None of those have gotten to contract yet. One of those did get to contract out, maybe trying to get back together. So there's some activity out there. Pricing, I think, is important. A lot of the questions now is, hey, is now the time to sell? A lot of people, I think, default to the later in the year. It's like, we'll wait and we'll put it on the market next spring. One thing I caution against right now on the Gulf is that, especially the Gulf run condo market, different animal, is depreciating dramatically. A lot of that has to do with rental revenue. A lot of that has to do with insurance and assessments and some other things that don't affect this market. But revenue certainly does. Buyers are doing a lot more due diligence, and the ones that are buying off rental revenue are looking at these numbers to be able to make purchases. They're going to be looking at these 25 numbers next year in the spring when they're making purchases. So if it's a want or need to sell thing, I still think there's more risk for some continued depreciation in the Gulf front market. We're seeing a lot of things sitting, very few closings, only 3 in all of the second quarter. And asking price after asking price after asking price been reduced. Some of them are your typical reductions of like $10,000, $20,000. There was a house on Surf Drive that had been priced over $5 million to start that's now under $4.5 million. So at some point, somebody is going to really want to sell and continue to adjust pricing. Seems to be the only lever to pull right now, or to be patient. If you're patient, I think you have to be prepared to still maybe work through some depreciation before we find a bottom and before we start to work back the other way. Something's going to have to change to stop the depreciating asking prices, to get some people to write some contracts and find where that number is. And then something would have to change for us to go from that and then to be moving up again. So calibrate your plan for that. We have a lot of good things coming to PCB. I'm bullish, a little past the short term. Top Golf's open already. Pirates Voyage is open. McGuire's is opening. Big infrastructure projects are underway. The hospital is a big deal. So I think for people who can get 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, I think you're talking about assets that can really, really be working well. If you're not willing to go that long or don't want to go that long, then recalibrating your plan quickly, I think, is important. I think there's more risk in that middle section of, I'm going to wait until the spring of next year and see what happens. We may not be out of the woods yet, and we could be talking about even lower numbers in the spring before buyers decide to start transacting. So I hope this helps. One last chart I would show you as far as timing. This is what our buyer activity normally looks like. We're the orange line this year, but you would expect to see fewer buyers out poking around throughout the rest of the year. Doesn't mean we don't write contracts all throughout the year. Of course we do. With Gulf Front, it's a little different. Plenty of buyers are on vacation, not doing as much business in the summer, and then come back to the Gulf Front market in the fall when it's easier to show things because they're not so rented. And when maybe the beach inspired them to finally make the move, or maybe I think a lot of people are talking now. Prices are just getting better and better and better, and at some point, hey, wow, that's going to be a nice move to make, especially if we see something happen in the stock market. Interesting. So, a little more difficult to predict on the Gulf front market. Still some risk to the downside, I think, more than me giving advice of counting on some continued appreciation from here. So I hope this helps. I have more information for you in the next video. If you have any specific questions about your situation, give me a call, shoot me a text to 850-290-0417. Again, I'm Craig Duran with the Duran Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Thanks for watching.